You know, everybody, I talked about mandates in my own video response. I did texting on mandates and everything. And now, another person over at the Sega forums, well, one of them is kind of wondering what would happen. Or, not what would happen. Well, not what would happen, but basically, they want to know, and it says it right there. Why wouldn't, basically, it's something along the lines of Sonic and Amy and why can't it work in Sega terms or something like that. I'll provide a link to that topic so you guys can read it yourself. But basically this person wants to know why Sonic and Amy can't work. Now, believe it or not, I'm not saying a Sonic-Amy pairing can't work. But it's like I said in the mandates H video, and I've said before in some texting responses, it all depends on the form of media when it comes to Sonic. Yeah, it all depends on the form of media. Basically, they're asking what if it wasn't an option. But also there are people, like on that mandates thing, that are asking the question, you know, why wouldn't it have a chance? And like I said, it all depends on media. You see, Sonic X, believe it or not, towards the end of the second, or right at the end of the second season, and towards the end of season 3, mostly did kind of show some hints that it could happen. Not saying that it wouldn't. However, why? Now here's the question: why would they be able to get away with that? Well, it's like I said in the other videos, and then I think in the texting. I know I'm repeating myself there, so I apologize. But it's mostly due to the fact that it's towards the end of the series, it's towards the end of the season, so you can somewhat get away with that. It's true. You can get away with that. Now, to get away with that is basically by saying that, you know, you could fall that. Well, basically, being able to show hints like that, you can get away with that, is by saying, look, they're saying, look, you play by the rules, we might be a little lenient. Yeah, it's kind of true. It's kind of crazy to hear that, but it is. You play by the rules, we'll be lenient, we'll let you do something. Or we'll let you show some kind of romantic interest or hint or whatever. So, basically that's why, you know, if you look at, that's why basically if you kind of look at it in a sense, that basically the reason you would see any kind of Sonic Amy hints or references or something like that in Sonic X, if not in the games at times, mostly like with Sonic X, is because, like I said, they're playing by the rules. They're saying, hey, if you play by the rules of most of the seasons, we'll let you show some hints. And they do. They do just that. But again, it's not the fact that it's not an option. It is an option. It just depends on the media. You see, it's like a lot of people have said. Some people have pointed out, it's a difference of media. When you take a look at the comics, Ian is given specific rules from what I understand and from what other people understand. They're given specific rules that Sonic and Amy can't be together. Now, some would say that the de facto, well, not the de facto, but a lot of people would say the reason for that is the age difference. In the comics, as it's been pointed out before, depending on how you look at it, in the comics, Amy is basically 6 to 7 years younger than Sonic. Well, the difference between them and, let's say, the games and Sonic X, she's more like 2 to 3 years younger in those mediums. It's kind of like with Tails. In SonAmy, he was depicted as 8 to 10 years old. In Adventures, he was depicted as 4 to 5. Big age difference. Big age difference by at least 4 to 5 years. Now the comics, well, that's a different story. I'm pretty sure he's depicted sort of around the 9, maybe the 10 to 11. Basically, he's depicted in the comics as 11 years old. Now, that's cool and everything. But again, if you were to take a look at maybe, let's say, the games, he might be, not saying he is, he might be depicted as perhaps a couple of years, about the same, about maybe 2-3 years, about just like with Amy, being 2 to 3 years younger than Sonic. Just saying. Now you might say to yourself, well, why can't they, or you might be saying and asking, why can't the comic do the same age thing as the games? I'm not saying they can't, and I'm not saying they would. When you take a look at the age difference when it comes to the comic book writers essentially want to throw a little bit of realism in there instead of just totally fiction. Some people have even said that the reason Sonic and Amy has never really officially happened in the books, in the comics, is not because of the age difference. It's because Archie Comics wants to protect themselves from what people are saying. And that sounds crazy, I know, but what are you going to do? And here's another thing. When people mention the age difference with Amy here, and say that the reason she can't be with Sonic is because she's in the comics is because her difference in age is by 5 to 7 years. A lot of people would then look at the non-chronological, as they put it, non-chronological, quote-unquote, the quote-unquote non-chronological Mobius years later, the possible future, or as some people say, like Ken Pender's, the true future, or whatever you want to call it. And you see Tails with Mina, you say to yourself, well, how can that be, since Mina's about the same age as Sonic and not a year younger? Well, you see, that's where things get a little crazy. That's where things start to get a little crazy, and the reason they get a little crazy is because we don't know specifically what Mina's age is. For all we know, she could be maybe 3 years older than Tails, who knows? But again, it's all preference. Now, some people have said that it's all due to the fact that it was sort of an in-joke. Little did they know that in-joke would become something important when it came to that storyline, non-chronological or not, and to the comic itself in some way, because no one can really tell. But, getting back on topic here, let me explain something. Let me explain something real quickly. Sonic and Amy, again, as I mentioned before, is an option. It just depends on the medium. If the comics were based off Sonic X in the games directly, no SonAmy reference, no SonAmy comic exclusive characters and all that. It was mostly game based, with no SonAmy, No comic characters. None of that. And basically be a comic that's based on the games only. Not like Sonic X was, but mostly a game-based comic, mostly about the games. Then, yeah, in those kind of comics, it would be a possibility. But it's not a possibility. You see, because the comics, the main ones, are a combination of all three franchises, of all three mediums of Sonic. The games, SonAmy, and originality. That's why Sonic and Amy have never happened, because they're totally based. It's a combination of all three in one conglomerate story, in one conglomerate world. And in their world, unless, as I mentioned in a text response over the forums, unless Ian Flynn retconned it, during and after the Genesis saga, in their world, she here is still about 11 to 12 years old, basically the same age as Tails. And according to many, that wouldn't look right for a 18, 17 to almost adult age Sonic to date someone like that. It wouldn't make sense. The only way any romantic situation for Amy could occur is, believe it or not, if she got paired with Tails. That would be the only way. Now you would think to yourself, well, that's obviously going to happen if they want to put any romance in those two, even at that young age. Yeah, it would be the only way. But again, we don't know that. And you see, that is why, Amy is an option, but in different mediums and different medias. People may not like the fact that Amy's is an option, but is a strong option, but in different mediums like Sonic X and the games. But the thing with Amy is the fact that as long as Sega somewhat calls the shots, all she's going to be is a Sonic chasing fangirl or Sonic chasing, Sonic dreaming friend of his that hopes someday he accepts her as his girl. Now you might say, well, okay, that makes sense, but what about that one scene in an issue of Sonic in the main comic? What about that one scene where Sally in her weaponized form tells Amy, hey, if you eliminate me, it'll give you a chance to be with Sonic. Or something like that. What about that, some people might ask. Again, that's not really Sally talking. That's more like her controlled mind talking. But basically, you saw what they did. They had Amy kind of toss that inside and say, hey, that's something like, it doesn't matter, I'm not here about that, I'm here to save my friend. You see, despite how we feel about Ian Flynn, he's doing what he can to work within the system. 222, despite how you feel about it, did show a little maturity on Amy's part, by having us kind of make sure Sonic and Sally's date went more smoothly. And by basically explaining that if Sonic likes being with Sally, that makes her happy. But she did say, and give Ian credit here, he did throw in the subtle hint that, yeah, she feels her and Sonic will be together someday, but right now if being with Sally makes him happy, so be it. You see, the thing is, folks, this is an option. But again, the reason it's not happening in the comics, in the main comics, is because it's a different storyline, it's a different world, and also the fact that as far as Sega goes, as long as they keep saying she can't have any kind of romantic interest with Sonic, as I said in text, and I'll say it again, Sally is the default, de facto girlfriend because of all that, because her relationship with Sonic on a temporary basis always works. So that's all I'm going to say. Comment and respond down below, and I'll talk to you later.